Devon, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is?
Monday?
Episode 100!
Episode 100?
Yes.
Look at us.
The math. I did the math. We
you
started
sure?
this season, episode 93 episodes in.
Oh, wow.
And we've done 5 episodes and a bonus episode, which is 6 episodes. So today would technically be episode 7 of season 4.
Wow.
Which means we are, boom, big digits.
100. I can't believe we made it this far. Also, I really hope it is 100, because if not, that'd be embarrassing.
Super embarrassing. Someone's going to go back and fact check me,
right.
and it's going to be like, bro, it's episode 92. Like, what are you doing?
We'll include a fact check in the footnotes if
I am
if we're wrong,
pretty sure today is episode 100.
Look at us. This is exciting. And we've come a long way.
We have.
Say so.
I really, this favorite season so far.
Yeah.
Like having you as a co-host has been wonderful. I've definitely enjoyed that. It's been very fun for me. So hopefully the same for you. But I feel like we've been like just better topics and more connected to our audience. We get a lot of feedback from the audience now, which I love.
Yeah, people have been loving it. People have been messaging me all the time, telling me how brilliant you are and how they want more. And fortunately, we get that today because this is Ask Andrew Anything Part 2.
Continued, huh?
We got so many questions. We were like, we have to do a part 2. And we like to dive deep on this podcast, so we're gonna do what we do.
Just dig on in. Sounds good. Yeah, I remember last time you said we had like a bunch, and then I know a few more came in since. And so we'll just keep it rolling, and then we've got a next episode's gonna be really fun. We won't tell people what it is yet, but let's just say if you like Ask Andrew Anything, get ready. It has nothing to do with me, but it's gonna be the next series. I think we're gonna have to do 3 or 4 of them.
Don't oversell it too much.
Sorry. So anyway, Ask Andrew Anything Part 2.
Yep.
Sounds like we're going to pick up kind of where we left off because we went through like 5 or 6 questions last time.
Yeah, we talked about like your journey to like deciding to be a dietitian, not just like...
That took way too long. When I listened back, I was like, 50 minutes of this podcast was just me just like droning on about me.
We needed it. We needed the origin story.
If you say so.
Not just a case specific, but like as Andrew, the Pittsburgh dietitian.
I appreciate it. It felt very fun to reflect on. I really enjoyed telling the story. I can't imagine enjoying listening to the story. That just sounds...
I enjoyed it. You've got one happy listener.
One fan. That's it. That's all I need. Just that one like. Reason to keep going.
What else did we talk about? We talked about Diet Coke.
Uh-huh.
What else did we talk about?
We dug into like when you're not motivated, like what your mindset's like. We definitely talked about like becoming an RD versus like a health coach.
Yes.
And there was some other stuff too in there, but we went all over the place. Yeah. It was like dietitians, RD to Bs, fellow ancillary professionals, some little nutrition stuff.
So if you missed that, go back and listen.
It's a good one. And if you don't want to hear my life story, fast forward to like minute 46 and it'll go seamlessly into a question that's not about me or my journey to becoming a dietitian.
It was juicy. Okay, well, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
1.
I'm ready.
Someone asked me, what do you think of Prime, and not to like call it a specific brand, but like other hydration products on the line?
Oh yeah. So like the world that is now hydration beverages.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. You think about
so much out there, and they are all so different.
Yeah, and it's like how many years where it was like Gatorade, Powerade, Propel. That was kind of it. And now all of a sudden, like you said, you have the Primes, you have Body Armors. There's all the different coconut water ones, which Prime is part coconut water. But they just keep coming out with more and more and more of them. Not to mention all the stick packs too.
Yeah.
I mean, Element,
and Liquid IV. I keep hearing about new ones from clients every day. Yeah. I'm like, really? Another?
Well, and even like Gatorade, like as a line, like there's like the Gatorade, there's the G0, there's like the Gatorade Fit, there's all the different ones. So
what do you think?
I think an overarching thought about electrolytes, right, is they are so wildly different. And I think we need to help people maybe understand like why they use them because they're not all the same thing and they're not all needed for specific reasons. So as a general rule of thumb, I love it because I am a big proponent of electrolytes. And I do find, especially in athletes or in our weekend warriors that like to get real sweaty, they tend not to add enough salt to their food for it to make a whole lot of sense. So sometimes they do need that extra support. Someone like me, where like I tend to work out early in the morning, I like having that sodium
Oh, yeah.
to start my workout and really like.
When I was marathon training, I would be craving salt mid-morning. I'd just be like pretzels
Just
to the
give
face.
give it to me, exactly.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah, I wake up feeling dehydrated, and so like I start my day with water and salt. And so I think that it's a net positive, but I do think that there's a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah.
Because electrolytes, and one of the things I'll start with is hydration is 1 part water and 1 part electrolytes, right? If you're only drinking a bunch of water and your electrolytes are out of balance, you're not going to be properly hydrated. The water won't get into your cells like they're supposed to. We need electrolytes.
On like a 96-degree day, and
yeah, coming out of this heat wave, exactly. We're coming off that heat wave. Oh, and so definitely need the electrolytes. And again, if you have too much water, not enough sodium or potassium, those two as the big heavy hitters, calcium and magnesium less so, you're not going to hydrate because the water isn't going to go in and out of the cells properly. The other thing is if you have too much electrolyte and not enough water, that is also a problem. And what I'd call attention to, and this may be a conversation for another day, our fascination with trying to get people to cut sodium out of their diet. For the most part, people don't have a salt problem, they have a dehydration problem. Instead of cutting your sodium, just drink more water. That'd be the better resolution for general pop. Like most people don't need to cut their salt, they need to just drink more.
So crazy how so many of my clients are asking me if they should be doing some of these like salt tablets and stuff, but then they're afraid of frozen meals because the sodium is too high, and I'm like, it's the same thing.
It's literally the same thing. Yeah. Or it's like, oh, yeah, and I had those salty chips. And it's like, that's 150 milligrams of sodium per serving.
The sodium is not the least healthy part of it.
Exactly. And so we've gotten into, the sodium thing becomes its own conversation, which is sodium is one of the most essential minerals in our body. We need it for our heart to beat. We need it for our muscles to contract. Like, you absolutely need it. A lot of people that eat very packaged and processed diets may get too much in proportion to the water they drink, but too much is a rare statement unless you're dealing with someone with a clinical issue like kidney disease or the very, 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 very small percentage of people that are salt sensitive. It's like 10% of people with primary hypertension. And so like that's not a large segment of our population.
Which is a huge misnomer, by the way, because a lot of, see a cardiologist, they'll tell you reduce the sodium in your diet if you have high blood pressure. And for some people, they do need that. But like you said, it's a small percentage of the population, yet it is still recommended across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and if you've got things like CKD, or you are known to be salt sensitive, or you have congestive heart failure or other fluid imbalance issues, then definitely talk to someone like us one-on-one before you make like a blanket decision. But it's to say for most people, you'd benefit from having just more water in proportion to your salt if you're a high salt eater. But then there's a lot of people, especially as we've gotten very focused on like whole foods eating and what I think our society would term the obsession with clean eating. If anything, we start to see that a lot of people don't get enough sodium, which kind of brings us to these beverages.
Absolutely. And
So
do you have recommendations?
Definitely.
Is there one that is better than the other? What should they be looking for when they're buying something like this?
Teeing me up perfectly. And so that's why I feel like there was that background that needed to be dug into, because the big difference between these beverages is the amount of sodium or potassium in them. And that's the thing that misses. So when you're trying to exercise, when you sweat, you lose a ton of salt. So like if you lose 24 ounces of fluid from sweat, you lose 500 to 700 milligrams of sodium. You lose like 30 to 70 milligrams of potassium. So we don't sweat potassium, we sweat salt. And so there are certain electrolyte beverages that are salt replacements. And that's going to be your Gatorade and your Propel for sure, your Liquid IV. They all have a very similar ratio where they're going to be like roughly 300 milligrams of sodium to roughly 100 milligrams of potassium. And so they're more of a salt replacement than they are a potassium replacement. And that's important if you are trying to replenish yourself from sweating or from fluid losses. And even element, like the LMNT, as a lot of people will call it.
That one's got like 1,000.
It's 1,000, but it's also 500 potassium. And so that's where that one's souped up on both fronts. And that would be really what I would call like, it's almost like just an electrolyte replacement. That's if you've been like dripping sweat, you're behind on fluid, behind on electrolytes. Maybe you don't get enough potassium in your diet. You don't eat a lot of things like bananas, oranges, avocados, a lot of fruits or veggies. That can be a thing that can kind of catch you up, assuming there's massive salt loss too.
I have to say, the Element saved me. Not sponsored, just a fan.
Yet.
We're listening. It was my Marine Corps marathon. When I ran the Marine Corps marathon last October, it was so hot. It was like 80 some degrees that day. And I was getting so sick and nauseous just from being dehydrated, which if you have a struggle with appetite during endurance racing, good idea to kind of just check your fluid balance, because a lot of times that is what causes that like nausea and just lack of appetite. It makes you struggle to fuel. But what I will say about the element and like ones like it is, if they say that the flavor is watermelon, if they say that the flavor is lime, the flavor is salt.
Yeah, the flavor is salt, and it whispers watermelon real quietly in your ear while you drink salt.
No shade when you do, it's great, but anyway,
yeah.
So sorry.
And when I use those, to your point, my big 32-ounce drink here, I do 2 of those to 1 packet.
Oh yeah.
Like I do half packet. My
32-ounce, I put 1 in.
Yeah. And so like I drink one of those things across 64 ounces, unless I'm like really behind on salt, then I'll do a 32. But I could not imagine drinking one of those in a 16-ounce beverage. And again, you need to be so behind on sodium. And so that's where when people ask like, which one should I use? It's like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? So you have like the high electrolyte replacement like that, which is really meant for like, are you out and about in the heat, dripping sweat, losing fluids? And even then, like, what's your salt to water ratio at that point? The Gatorades, the Propel packets specifically, the Powerade, the Liquid IV, those are all kind of that mid, you know, where they're the more traditional capture of what we would call true sodium or electrolyte loss from exercise. So for most athletes, that's going to be more than enough as a during or an after to keep you rolling, keep you sustaining and replenish. Then you kind of go to the other side where you have these like what they're calling recovery drinks. And that's Prime and Body Armor are kind of the big 2. Yeah. They're both 900 or 700 potassium and like 100 sodium. And so if you're talking about right after exercise, dripping sweat, sodium loss, they're useless. Yeah. If you're talking about later in the day, trying to catch back up on water, great. And so that's where I like to say like Gatorade, Powerade, Liquid IV around exercise. And then a Prime or one of those could be like a hydration beverage later in the day to just help balance it out. And so I think that's where when you start seeing people drinking Primes during a workout, it's like, don't flood your body with potassium during exercise. That makes no sense. And so it's again, the word recovery is, it's the appropriate suggestion, but I think it's vague enough to confuse people.
The same way. Yeah. One thing I always tell my clients to look out for too is like the sugar content, because a lot of these electrolyte beverages will have added sugar, which for some people is very necessary during a long workout. But a lot of people just don't need that extra sugar. Or if you're just drinking it to catch up on hydration throughout the day, you're not necessarily using it for endurance exercise.
Exactly.
Probably don't need that added sugar.
Don't need it. And that's where the element doesn't have any. Gatorade Zero packets and ready to drinks don't. Yeah. The Propel does not. Propel's my go-to. They have.
I love their strawberry kiwi. So good.
I keep their little stick packs, raspberry lemonade and blackberry lemon. They're like slightly tart, slightly sweet, not overwhelming. And you can buy like 120 of them on Amazon for like $40.
They're so cheap. And some of those electrolyte beverages are so expensive.
Elements are $2 to $3 a packet. The liquid IVs are $1.50 to $2. So Propel's definitely the most cost effective. And again, it's just the sodium and potassium. Doesn't have all the sugar. That one's the one that like gen population that wants to balance out might benefit from, or just like people that like to exercise but aren't like getting out there for 2+ hours. And like you said, if you're not exercising for more than 90 minutes, like you really don't need to be consuming sugar during your exercise. And so I think that one's kind of the one I point at people the most. Yeah. And then some people that don't want the artificial sweeteners, which I'll say Propel and all of these have so little of it, I'm not concerned about it. Yeah. But that's where you can start to play around with the Element or even the Redmond Relight, which is kind of Elements.
This is a new one. See, there's a new
there's
one.
So many. Redmond Relight is by Redmond Sea Salt brand, cool. And Redmond Relight is basically an Element, and it's very similar in terms of like it's super high in both. You do like a quarter scoop of it, and it's like a slightly stevia sweetened version. And then you can always do like natural Gatorade. There's recipes out there for it, but it's like you add the pink Himalayan sea salt, stir, and then you squeeze lemon juice in, and you can make your own drink for those that feel so inclined. I find that I'm fine. I find that to be a negligible benefit, and it's unless you really love to do it, it's kind of a waste. But
Good stuff. Okay, so
understand what electrolytes are, and then what electrolytes you might need based on, are you surrounding exercise with the intention to sustain, add more salt, replenish, add more salt, or trying to wind the body down, create parasympathetic down regulation? That's potassium. So save your body armors and your primes for later in the day, hours later.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Great.
That was
I
a
love
great
that
answer.
one. That's a great start. I love it.
Okay. Are you ready for the next one?
Let's do this.
Red dye 40. Is it really so terrible for us?
Is this why you wore red? Are you red dye 40? Is that what this is?
I'm here representing red dye 40. We want answers.
I think this was an intentional outfit. That's what I think.
But you don't have to cater your answer to me just because I'm red dye 40 today.
This is my marketing director saying, am I enough? Am I okay?
Tell me I'm good.
Tell me I'm enough. I'm not toxic, right? Red dye 40 is one of those compounds that got trapped in the confounding variables, right? Correlation, not causation.
Yep.
When you look at the data, you have, yes, there is a correlation with high consumption of red dye 40 and certain health issues like hyperactivity, for example, in particular. The problem is that isn't done like in a lab where they put, something on a child's head, feed them red dye 40, and then look at an MRI and look to see what parts of their brain lights up and say, look, we can see this area turns red when you consume red dye 40.
Yeah.
There's no direct like lab-based correlation to it being a stimulant. But we do see that across certain demographics where red dye 40 is most highly consumed, we do see higher instances and diagnoses of ADHD, for example. And even autism.
Yep.
Now, here's where we have to kind of zoom back and go, what's that data telling us? Because that is not cause and effect. That is two things that seem to be true in a certain group of people. And you have to go, okay, well, is it because one's causing the other, or is it because something else is causing them? And I always like to remind people, my favorite one is in the summertime, right? Ice cream consumption goes up, and so does theft. And it's because it's hot outside.
We just got a nice snore from
We just got a nice Rottweiler
you guys
snore.
probably couldn't hear it, but
Thanks, Apollo.
sorry.
But it's to say that in summertime, we have ice cream consumption and theft both go up. And so we have to ask ourselves, is it that ice cream consumption causes people to want to steal things? Is it that robbing people makes you crave ice cream? Or is it that hot weather causes people to crave ice cream and also causes people to become more desperate and more likely to steal things? That's a very simple example of the difference between assuming two things cause one another versus recognizing that two things are caused by something else. Red dye 40 is that. It is not necessarily the thing that causes the higher incidences of ADHD or autism, but what we can see is that it is consumed in a population that usually has limited access to food and limited resources in general.
And limited food choices that they'll find acceptable, right?
Correct.
So a lot of my clients, especially young kids, they will have a very limited list of food preferences. A lot of them are candy and foods that may also have red dye 40 in them.
And these are populations that have lower access to extracurricular activities, that have a tendency to have families that work, that both parents work and oftentimes work multiple jobs. And so there's less of a family dynamic to support and engage the child. There's a lot of other factors that would play a role and say, hey, there's a higher incidence of this. It's also to say that there's in lower income populations, we also see other things increase, like increases in drug use in the parents and alcohol abuse and really what we'll just call substance abuse in general. And so we look at this and go, okay, is it that it's red dye 40, or is it that red dye 40 happens to be in highly processed highly processed foods is what I meant to say. Things like candy and stuff that tends to be picked up at a gas station and is then consumed at large by a population that may have a higher instance of certain diagnoses because of birth complications, and also may have higher instances of those things because of a reduction in outlets, right? They don't have the after school programs. They don't have the things that are stimulating them and all of that. So a lot of the data would suggest that that is really where that's coming from. And so that's an example of, it's not causation. There's a confounding variable, but in this case, it'd be what they'd call multifactorial, where there's multiple factors contributing. And so, said simply, attempting to reduce red dye 40 in someone's diet, there's two ways to go about that. And so there's the blame the ingredient, which is we just need to eradicate it from everything. And then there's the recognition of, no, it's just symbolic of a diet that's out of balance. So what can we do to bring more fruits and vegetables to populations that have that? How can we eradicate food deserts? How can we improve access through schools and through community events and endeavors? How can we make normal, more healthful, balanced foods more accessible to these people?
Yeah, and more appealing to a lot of these, kids that can have you can call them like picky eaters. I just say, they're just particular, right? They may have a very limited, list of foods that they will eat. And a lot of them are like a lot of those highly processed foods that are hyper palatable. So finding ways to expose them to different foods. I mean, I've talked to kids, especially like in inner cities, that like have never had a zucchini and things like that. It's just, of course, those foods aren't going to be as appealing to you because A, they're unfamiliar, and B, your palate is so adjusted to these hyper palatable foods.
Exactly.
So a good note.
Yep. So that's where it's one of those pieces where at the end of the day, if you're looking at a child's diet and it's full of those types of things, artificial ingredients and preservatives, that's more of a chance to say, what can we add? This is a Devon, the dietitian original, right? This is subtraction by addition. How do we remove something, subtract it by adding other things? How can we reduce these processed foods by increasing others? And it doesn't mean they need to go to zero. So we don't need to be like running from this and avoiding it and calling it cancer causing and toxic, because it just isn't those things. But it definitely shouldn't be this dominant ingredient in someone's overarching diet. But it's less that it's specifically that ingredient. It's more what that diet looks like.
So note to my mom who asked me about, not my mom, but a mom who asked me about Advil and the red coating on it. You are safe to consume that.
Exactly.
You can give your child as long as it's within the recommendations.
Well said.
What else did I want to ask about? Okay, so this is one that I actually just came up with because I feel like it's been a hot button topic since the last recording. So it's new.
There, it's come up.
What do you think about some of these prebiotic sodas? I know there was a big lawsuit that came out recently about them, some marketing claims that were falsified, and we have one right here in front of us, which
Vintage
is what
cola. Yeah, so I was laughing about the lawsuit with the prebiotic soda. First of all, can we just like bash prebiotics for a second? Because that is one of my that is such a trash marketing scheme. So everyone listening, prebiotics are the things that probiotics eat. Probiotics are your gut bacteria. They digest parts of your food that you don't digest. If you've ever gotten really gassy, that means your gut bacteria are eating more than they should probably, or got access to some food that you didn't break down too well. So prebiotics are not a supplement. They're just food for gut bacteria.
They're just fiber mostly.
And that's it. It's literally fiber. You want a prebiotic, eat an apple. Like an apple has what? 3 times the amount of inulin as a prebiotic supplement that you spent $49.99 on. Like you're literally buying a fifth of a fiber supplement when you buy a prebiotic supplement, and you're paying insane amounts of money. Eat a cup of fruit. Like literally, that's all you need to do. I promise.
Had some clients be worried about inulin as an ingredient because it sounds chemically and unfamiliar, and I'm like, I'm sorry to tell you, but if inulin's bad for you, then celery is bad for you.
Yes, exactly.
And literally every fruit and vegetable.
Every fruit and vegetable. Like outside of the apple, high in inulin, right? And there's a lot of benefits to it. It's just fiber. And so
it's good for you.
That's the first thing. Is like you don't need to take a prebiotic. And if a probiotic has prebiotics in it, that is just them feeding the bacteria in it, so its shelf life is up, right? If you put bacteria on a shelf and they die over the course of time, giving them a little bit of fiber in there is going to keep them alive for 3 to 6 months. It extends the shelf life. And now they're just marketing their mechanism of product, and they're making it sound like it's a new ingredient. It's not a new ingredient. So first things first, prebiotics are the stupidest supplement.
Just an outlandish marketing claim.
eat your damn veggies, right? Eat the fruits and veggies. But so back to these sodas. All in all, I think they're fun. You know, I personally will admit I am like not a soda drinker. I got sold some very, very helpful lies when I was in middle school that sodas reduced your carbon dioxide exchange and limited your endurance.
Oh no.
And so my cross country and track coaches were like, during the season you can't drink soda because it affects your endurance. And I like bought into that at 11 years old and quit drinking soda. And by the time I found out that that was just like physiologically not true, I had not drank soda from age 11 to 20. And it is way too sweet for me. I don't enjoy it. I don't look for it. I don't crave it. It's not in my life.
I just have to add, side note, one of my clients who listens to this podcast is an ultra athlete, amazing athlete, just completed a 70-mile race. And at the end, she was drinking Coke. She was drinking Coke for her endurance. So we can just dispel that claim right there.
It's false. Very false.
She killed it.
Yeah. Drinking carbonated soda does not affect your carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange in your lungs. Complete falsehoods. I was sold lies as an 11-year-old, and it just, all it did was make it so that I just don't drink soda. That said, I do like these.
I do too.
I had never had them until you and I were at Fancy.
Oh yeah.
And we went to that sports conference, and I think it was Olipop.
I think it was Olipop.
I know it was because it was the grape soda one. Yeah. And I will say their grape soda, like grape is one of those flavors for me. It's either delicious Welch's grape juice or it's cough medicine. And they knocked the Welch's grape juice out of the park kind of vibe. Like I remember taking a sip of it and going, oh my gosh, this is delicious. Yeah, we were just like catching up with other colleagues. We got to see Leslie Bonsi and all sorts of people we love to see. And shout out Leslie. But it's to say the Olipop brand, you know, that they're the ones that are higher in fiber. Like the tastes of the ones I've tried, I will warn everyone listening, don't drink more than one a day. There are like 9 grams of fiber in this thing.
Unless you want lots and lots of prebiotics for your gut.
Yeah. You're going to feel a little bit bubbly. It's not going to be great.
Especially if you're at the office and I don't want your coworkers to hate you.
Exactly. So keep it to 1 just because it really is a fiber supplement. Yeah. But I think they taste good. I think they're fun.
I think there's like 9 grams of fiber.
I think so, right?
Some of the other ones that I've seen, this one actually has 50 milligrams of caffeine from green tea.
Oh, interesting. The vintage like cola. I haven't had this one before.
Half a cup of coffee for reference. 2 grams of added sugars. That's great. 25 grams of sodium. And 9 grams of fiber. So the other ones I've seen have closer to like 4 grams of fiber, which is a lot less harsh on your system.
Yeah, that's a little more manageable. A lot of people, especially if you're not like a big fruit and veggie eater, like that's 9 grams all at once that's pretty robust. That's like that's a half a cup of oatmeal with 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and a half a cup of berries. It's not an insignificant amount of fiber. That is a serving and a half of kashi crunch. I mean, we're talking, that's a commitment is what that is. So I keep those to 1. Then there's the Poppy brand. Is that the one that had the lawsuit?
Yes. Like, which is the one I think it has a little bit less.
It's
got
closer
a little bit
to
of like
4.
apple cider vinegar in it.
Yeah. And then there's a couple others that they kind of shift more towards the apple cider vinegar ones, which once again, I don't hate any of it as a concept. Would I say that they're better than soda? Yes, absolutely. They have less sugar overall. You know, they still give you the carbonation. They still give you the little bit of a bite. Again, are they this miraculous health beverage that's going to change your gut microbiome? No, and that's why the lawsuit's happening is because they were maybe edging with. I don't know which claims are being inspected at this point, but I would imagine they were probably making pretty bold claims like restore your gut with these sodas. And once again, they have prebiotics that are a third of an apple. Well, like eating a third of an apple isn't going to change your gut, so neither is this soda. And so they're not miracle workers, but I do think for those people that like something carbonated, like something fizzy, they have like some fun flavor profiles to them. They have way less sugar than normal soda does, which is great. And they're mostly like natural sweeteners and natural flavors and all sorts of things. So I don't have any problem with them. I think it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I really like the ones that they sell at Aldi. So they're in the refrigerated section, and you're going to love this. So they've got pro and prebiotics because, of course, they have the inulin in it, right? And I think it's like 9 grams, similar to the Olipop. But then the reason it's in the refrigerated section is because it has a little bit of kefir in it.
Oh, interesting.
So that's
kefir or kombucha?
Kefir.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so there's like one that's like a strawberry vanilla flavor that's delicious. There's another one that's a root beer flavor that's delicious.
Ooh.
And there's like 3 or 4 grams of sugar in it, like very low, and it's delicious.
That's cool.
So I love it. But the first time I bought it, I didn't track that it had to be refrigerated. So then I had to throw it out and buy the second ones.
Yeah.
But they were fantastic.
That's fun.
And I think it's really helpful for a lot of my clients that are trying to like reduce alcohol intake. You have a barbecue and like maybe alcohol, having a few beers is the thing that kind of like throws you off in terms of your diet. You miss your workout the next morning. So if you're experimenting with just reducing your alcohol or just eliminating it altogether, I love sipping on something like that on a night that like, I don't think I've like talked about this publicly, but you and I have talked about the fact that I stopped drinking almost a year ago. And I love that when everyone else is like drinking alcohol, like I'm drinking something that's got fiber, it's got probiotics.
You're such a dietitian.
And I feel so much better the next day. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it too.
Yeah, I think they make a lot of sense. I will say too, going back to the idea of they're fine, they're fun, they're definitely something you can use, but also going back to like, for example, if I have a client that has really bad digestive issues and we're talking about doing a gut reset where we're inspecting their stomach's ability to function, their small intestine, and then their large intestine, say we decide that we've figured out and ruled in that their large intestine is where the issue is, and we say, hey, we need to do like a gut microbiome reset. I like to use the analogy that your gut microbiome is like New York City, right? There are all different types of bacteria, just like in New York City, there's all different types of people. And so if I'm going to give someone a gut reset, it's going to be 3 to 6 months of a multi-strain probiotic. So like 15 to 20 strains, which would be the police officers, the firemen, the Wall Street workers, the taxi cab drivers, the random hipster DJs, all the different members of the New York City, right? These are going to be like 3 hot dog carts. Like it's not New York City. It's not going to replace it. Like I've had people that I'm like, you take a probiotic. And if you respond with like, well, I drink an Olipop every day, that's nowhere close to significant with what we're talking about. It's not hurting, but the chances that this is like completely renovating your gut microbiome is 0%.
And I always encourage my clients too to get like multiple food sources of probiotics in addition to if you may need a supplement in addition, depending on what's going on. But I've heard a lot of research that it's better absorbed through food because especially something like kimchi or something like sauerkraut, it's both a pre and a probiotic because it's got the fiber in the cabbage. And it's actually a lot more concentrated in something like sauerkraut.
It's so much higher. And that's to give people numbers. Like, I don't know, does this actually make a claim on cultures? I didn't actually look at that.
I don't think it even has probiotics.
Oh, so this is just prebiotic only. So this one doesn't have the probiotic. Plant-powered microbiome approved.
So it comes back to food as medicine.
Yes, but it's I think one of the ones, I think it has somewhere around, it'll claim cultures and it'll be like 100,000 cultures. And it's like, well,
nothing.
Yogurt has 2 million. And then when we're doing gut resets, we're talking about like 50 billion.
Billions,
we're talking about just massive iterations higher. And so not a bad thing to include. It's not saving you. Like I said, it's the 3 hot dog carts between 17th and 47th in New York City. But like we still have a whole lot of other, people in the gut microbiome. So
cool.
Fun.
Last question.
Ooh, we're flying today.
I know.
See, that's what happens when you don't ask me about me. Like,
well, just wait. Just
wait.
Oh
no. Oh no.
This isn't about you per se, but I think that you could probably go on about this for a little while. Are you ready? Where are we at?
We got time. We got time.
So what would you say makes a case-specific dietitian different than another dietitian? What makes our team unique, you think?
Ooh, man, that's a really good question. Yeah, definitely going to be 30 minutes at least. No, we are constantly growing what that response would be. But at base, I would say, I think the first thing is that case-specific dietitians, we say that we meet you where you are, but we mean that that's a multi-level answer. Or multi-level statement. When we meet people where they are, we mean that physically, we mean that emotionally, we mean that mentally. Like we really do meet people where they are in their life, in their goals, all of that. I think a lot of groups are a little bit more niched in some ways than we are, which there's pros and cons to that.
Some have like a very specific nutrition philosophy that if that doesn't totally vibe with yours, it might not be a good fit for you, for example.
Yeah, where we work very hard to meet the person as they are, where they are, and move them forward. So I think with that, there's a little bit more of a coaching dynamic that's like expected from our dietitians. And almost all of our dietitians have some background in coaching, whether it be they were coaches for sports teams, or whether they did health coaching, or whether their master's work did more motivational interviewing and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that there's definitely, that's like one of the biggest pieces, is like we meet people where they are, and we mean that in every way. From there, I think that we are constantly pushing to be on the cutting edge of what it means to be a dietitian.
You're so right.
That's something that, as you know, I've personally taken very seriously. And as leaders like you in our organization have come on board, you've doubled down on that and amplified it. And that is why we find ourselves where we are. Is we are a really, really deeply passionate group of A players that are curious and growing and constantly pushing the envelope. And so you're going to find that the things that we do always consider evidence and science and research, but are also recognizing that science is ever evolving, and there's times and places to integrate new types of evidence and new types of science in a way that might not be harmful, but could definitely be hurtful. Could definitely be helpful. So I do think that that's a big piece, is we're always pushing the envelope on how we help people and ways we support people. And some of those were going to be some of the more obvious ones, like the fact that we order labs.
Yeah.
Right. And that they're not covered by insurance, but they're also price reduced and so affordable. Yeah. And we build custom lab panels, and we do that because I believe that our dietitians, our role is the quarterback of proactive care, right? And I also think we're very unique because we kind of live in both the proactive and reactive space, right? We can go sit in meetings with doctors and therapists and other people as a part of a medical collaborative team. And then we can walk across a bridge and go work with cash-only trainers and other health people. And so we kind of live in both sides of taking care of people and health. And as a result, I think we have a very important task of being that quarterback. So just like a PCP is the quarterback of reactive care, I think we're the quarterback of proactive care. So with that, we're always looking for ways to better support our client in what their endeavor is. And like, I can't even count on all my fingers and toes, how many clients I've personally worked with where we order them a full thyroid panel and it costs them $80 to $100. And then they go into their endocrinologist appointment with a full thyroid panel, and they get diagnosed by that endocrinologist with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism.
Saves them an appointment, a copay, and perhaps labs, months of diagnosis.
Yeah, because unfortunately, in this example, Hashimoto's usually doesn't show in the TSH. And in the medical world, you have to order a TSH first, and if it's out of range, then you can order the rest. But if the TSH is normal, they can't order the rest. And so you get people that are suspicious of something being off, and then it's, nope, you're fine. And then a year later, when their thyroid actually bites the dust, and they could have been getting help that whole time. Those are examples of where we've watched gaps in our medical care, and we have looked to say, hey, is there a way that we can, without stepping outside our scope, be a better team player that can deliver things? And so whether that is complex nutritional protocols, which we are constantly digging into, and I think that's my third piece, or whether it is interventions that we're constantly trying to be on the front lines with, right? Vitract, the new lab group that we just started working with, is another example of that. That is a gut microbiome lab that is a third the price of a GI map and way more recommendation based, which is to say, like,
much more applicable,
much more affordable, and then able to be integrated into direct care in the form of nutrition and well-being. We're going to be one of the first people to offer the test, and we're going to be one of the first to, like, they're going to be on our podcast. Like, we're always looking for the cutting edge so that we can meet people where they are. And with that, I think the last piece is we're always learning. And that's not to, I mean, I think dietitians as a whole, I think we tend to be a profession of learners, but man, we are a curious bunch. I don't think people realize, but every 2 weeks we're doing internal in-services. We're bringing in guest speakers and doing continuing education. We have mentoring dietitians on staff that come in and educate. And we are constantly pushing the envelope on the latest and greatest science, the latest and greatest research. And then from there, that's before we factor in all of our case study meetings where we talk and collaborate as a group. The one-on-one meetings I have with every member of our staff at least bi-weekly, where I'm working with them one-on-one. And so when you're working with a case-specific RD, you're getting all of our brains, and you're getting a bunch of brains that are looking to think outside the box, looking to push things forward, and very good at taking all of that complex stuff, distilling it down into something very small, very actionable to get you started on your journey based on where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, like 20 some heads are better than one.
Yeah, well said.
I think that's something that's really special about us. And I just have to echo literally everything that you said. I feel like you took the words out of my mouth. The first is like the meeting you where you are thing, because one of the things that we learn in motivational interviewing is resisting the writing reflex. I could look at your diet, I could look at your lifestyle, and I could pick out 20 things that we could work on. But I always kind of ask my clients, like, what do you think is the biggest priority right now? Like, I can share my thoughts, but I'm curious to know, A, what do you think needs the most attention? And also, what feels the most approachable for you right now? Like, you might love to work on your stress management, but you've just got too much going on right now. Like, let's focus on something maybe simpler first, like eating breakfast. And so meeting the client where they are, I think is really important. I tell all of my clients their first initial consult, like, well, the first question I ask is like, is this your first time meeting with a dietitian? Oftentimes it's yes, but sometimes it's like, no, like I met with this dietitian outpatient at this hospital, and like they gave me like a picture of the My Plate and like sent me on my way.
A templated plan of 1,800 or 2,000 calories with sample ingredients.
No shade to them. It's just their structure is different. They are not built to be able to do what we do, even if I'm sure there are tons of fantastic dietitians out there.
Oh, of course.
Doing that, but you have a limited number of visits. You may get 1 or 2 visits with them.
20 minutes.
And they may not be totally specialized. They just don't have access to like the resources and education that we have.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, I'm like, even if you've met with a dietitian before, this was probably going to be a very different experience. Just letting you know, this is case specific nutrition for a reason, right? You have your own history, you have your own lifestyle and like routines, and you have your own goals. So I want to dig into your like past, present, and future. So like what's happened as far as your nutrition history, your medical history, but also your relationship with food. How was food talked about growing up? Kind of like, what is your current reality? What does a day look like in your life? And where do you want to go? What would an ideal relationship with food look like? What are some of your goals around nutrition or healthy living? And how can I help you get there? What are you hoping to get out of our work together?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So I think that's the one piece, is like, we really do make an effort to resist the writing reflex and meet the client where they are and the goals that they think are important, right?
Yeah. It's funny. It's to your point. Like we have our educational piece where we dig in and educate them on things, but then we also provide the integration piece, which is troubleshooting how to do it, navigating the barriers and the obstacles in the environment that likely caused the problem in the first place.
Absolutely.
And that piece is like you said, the amount of time we get to spend both per visit and then the frequency of visits. We tend to build relationships with our clients. I mean, I have clients that I've gone through complete life cycle phases, right? Where it's like, met a guy training for CrossFit. He was just out of college bachelor, and I saw him through that phase, and then the dating phase, and then getting engaged, and then getting married, and then having kids, and then moving to the suburbs, and then working remotely, like just as an example. And it's different like
goals.
Every quarter his life was changing, and food and movement and life habits were constantly under attack, is how it can feel.
Yeah.
And having someone like me there to chat through it, reflect on it, project through it, tweak it, adjust it. It gave him the ability to navigate things better. And so I agree. We have that educational part. We're always here to give you the cool items and things to think about, but then that integration, the troubleshooting, the how to do it, and then also connecting to why you need to do it. We get to spend all that time, and we've built a business that allows us to do just that. And to your point, I think most dietitians want to be able to do this, and that's why this platform is so important, is because we're enabling our profession to do what it's really trained to do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why you see dietitians in private practice thriving, is because we really have a skill set that doesn't get as utilized as it should in other scenarios.
It's like a framework that allows us to go above and beyond for people. Like we all want to. I know so many providers, doctors, therapists, and psychiatrists out there that would love to be able to spend the time and effort and attention, and also have like the knowledge base that we have, and their system is not set up for it. So that's why private practice, but specifically what you've built, to your credit, like it's just so unique and so different. And I really, really value all the education pieces, because I can't tell you how much, and we had some of the best dietitian educations in the entire country, but how much of what I currently do is so much based on what I have learned since I've gotten here.
Yeah.
So
it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because we are the high quality, and we have a commitment to that. And as many know, we're trying to scale our quantity in the form of franchises and expansion, because we want to get people more care. We want to provide better access. We want to meet everyone where they are. But when you have a high quality service, the quantity scale, it just has to be slow, because there's such a learning curve if you're going to join our team. Like, all the dietitians come in and they're great RDs and they're very brilliant, but the complex digestion stuff that we do, the complex mindset stuff we do, the complex metabolism stuff we do, the behavioral components with disordered eating that we play around with, the special populations we deal with, there's a massive learning curve if you want to be a CSN RDN. And we're very proud of that. And we're getting better at, to your point, bringing people on that are passionate and curious and hungry and ready to get after it. And we've got great collaborative internal systems, and also, groups.
External collaboration as well. Like, I think that's something people don't know, is that we don't just operate in a silo as a solo practitioner. Not only do we have access to the entire group of dietitians, but also we work very closely with a lot of our partners, like a lot of the family medicine doctors I work with, a lot of psychiatrists and therapists. I have regular meetings with them about specific patients. So that is part of our care as well. It's not just expecting you to go tell your therapist or go tell your family med doctor about what conversations you have with your dietitian. It's like, we talk to them. We ask your permission, you sign a paper, and we get to actually call them and be like, hey, this is what I think is going on with our patient. And I think that is just like next level service, which, like, again, this business framework has allowed us to be able to do that. And the last thing I want to say, I know I'm just taking your answer to the question.
Hey, ask Devon everything. It's fine. It's whatever.
Accessibility is the last thing I would say.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
I feel like you failed to mention that, but that is such an important piece. A lot of people think of seeing a dietitian as this huge luxury, like, oh, I could never afford that.
Yeah.
But we accept all major insurances.
Medicaid included. We're one of the only Medicaid providers in the state.
Unheard of. People's eyes pop out of their heads when I tell them that.
Yeah.
Especially other providers.
Our out-of-pocket rates are significantly cheaper than the average, and that's
very
because
reasonable.
We work very hard to make sure we're getting reimbursed appropriately and correctly through insurances, but we also make sure we're maximizing that tool to the best of its ability.
Totally.
And as a result, a lot of people get coverage, and then the ones that don't, we're able to offer a rate that allows us to keep the lights on and keep providing care, but is also very reasonable for the services we're offering. So, like you said, meeting people where they are financially would be a big piece, and it's a huge tenet to what we're trying to accomplish. We want care to be accessible to all. And that's part of the reason why we have our Chronic Disease Health Alliance, right? Our sister nonprofit foundation. That's the whole point of it, is to bridge the gap in education and food in low-income areas and people that don't have access to the common information that they deserve to know. Yeah.
One last thing. I'll brag about Case Specific. You really care about your people, and you take care of your people, and it shows through the care that they're able to provide. Like, literally last Friday, you asked on a meeting, like, what is like leading to some burnout? Like, what can I do to help better support that from happening? And I can trying to imagine like a big hospital system asking any of their providers this question. I can't picture it. Or if they do ask it, I don't see them actually making active changes in a timely fashion to address that. Right. So I just have to give you a ton of credit for just like caring about your people, having regular touch points with your people, like one-on-one, and also group collaboration, and like actively finding ways to take good care of them in terms of like financial, in terms of benefits. And we have like the most insane, amazing benefits package, which I'm grateful for.
We try and pretend like we're a big box tech company when we build our benefits packages for a reason, right?
But I think all of that is really important. It's part of the reason why we have such a good team.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because that's sort of the game, right? Is if you're going to have A players, if you're going to have like really high quality people that challenge and want to grow, that means that you as a business, so me as a business owner, I need to embrace the fact that my company is meant to be a platform that they're enticed to proudly stand on.
Yeah.
And so that's the deal, right? Is I want high quality service, and they want to feel supported. And that transaction, if you're going to be a high quality service, that means that transaction needs to only be high quality things. And it's my job to go first in that, in my opinion. And so whether it's our benefits package or whether it's making sure that I feel like it's funny, the burnout you mentioned, that's like one of those, it's such a simple idea, but it's a chess move, really. Instead of just chasing the immediate revenue, which is, because at the end of the day, like, I am very impact focused, but a business to keep alive has to make money, right? So on the back end, to try and spread your employees thin to make more money and cut into margins, or to extend margins, in the short term, that sounds great until you start to realize it leads to burnout and massive employee turnover, which is detrimental in a quality service industry. Losing a dietitian, their reputation, the rapport they've built, all of their clients are going to be super disappointed, super sad. People are going to have gaps and lapses in care. There's no benefit to that. So what am I going to do? Make an extra 10% and then turn what could be a 10 or 15 year career into a 3 to 5 year career? The math just doesn't math. And so it's my job to build a platform and then also be the setter of boundaries for my staff. Because the other thing is, when you hire passionate people, you hire a bunch of people that sometimes will sell their free time.
I don't know what you're talking about, Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes you hire these marketing directors in red shirts that just like sell all their time and work crazy hours. But it's my job is to set boundaries to keep all of you thriving. And so if I can build a place that sets that up, what's going to happen? You're going to thrive, which means you're going to show up as your best, most charismatic self, which means people are going to receive that. And that's the whole point of this service. And so I'm glad that 10 years in, I have not sold my soul to margin business. And if I ever do, shoot me.
I'll be right here in my red shirt.
In my red shirt. Ask about Red Dye 40.
But I think you kind of juggle the line of allowing autonomy. So like, if we want to really push ourselves and challenge ourselves, like, the opportunity is there.
Oh, of course. While
also protecting boundaries, like we said, because our dietitians are these type A, very driven, very I don't know, they're just like go-getters, but like the other side of that coin is that they can overwork themselves and burn themselves out. And you've made it so clear all along the way that, like, we do not have that expectation. We'd rather you do like quality over quantity in terms of your care. And so I think you toe that line really well. And just the fact that you thought to ask, like, what can I do is just, it lends itself to the idea that you're very like tuned in. And also the fact that you're a practitioner yourself and you get that burnout. You've experienced it firsthand 10 times over with your crazy hours and how long you've done it.
Well, and that's, I think, to your point, I think when you're stepping into a phase of your life where you're becoming more of a mentor, like I find myself, mentors typically are challenging you to be your best self and sharing from professional experiences. And oftentimes it's not their successes. And so to your point, the first 5 years of Case Specific was me being an 80 to 100 hour a week workaholic that put in all the hours, all the days, all the time, and basically just like slept and took dog walks, essentially, right? Like and there was a lot of benefit that came from that, but there was also a lot of consequences that came from that. And I am somebody that I'll never claim I'm perfect, but I'll always claim I'm willing, right? Which is, I'm curious and I'll always keep learning. I learned a lot from my boundarylessness, people pleasing that was trying to care for others without any reference to self. I poured a mile wide and an inch deep, and as a result, like, didn't pour as well into prioritized relationships like I should have. So I didn't balance those things. I didn't know how. And so I had to, that was a lesson that I personally had to learn. And I like to think that that makes me a better mentor because I learned from it. And so I find myself setting boundaries on behalf of all of you. Those boundaries are typically boundaries that I myself did not set and then had to walk back or had to learn the hard lesson from. And the other thing, though, is I also owned the business. So I got all the benefit. And at the end of the day, like, I love how passionate our team is. And I do believe that this is our business as a collective. But at the end of the day, like, I disproportionately benefited in that circumstance compared to any of you in the same circumstance. And to your point, someone's going to work like that for us. I will absolutely make it worth their while, but spoiler alert, it's not gonna be, because I got 100% of the proceeds and it wasn't worth it. It led to burnout and resentment and frustration and all sorts of things because there was an imbalance. And so I believe I learned a lot of valuable lessons being an overworked consultant before I became a more intentional leader and eventually CEO of this company. And the hope is that the policies internally are meant to set all of you up to do your best work. One, because I know that that is the key to sustaining great dietitians, but that's also the key to great care. And I'd rather grow something of quality slowly than rush something and try and force a bunch of things and overextend people. That business model's broken. And we've had such success as a result, which is, it's kind of cool to see. It's working.
So far. Well, this was fun. That's all the questions I had for you. And
you made this one easy on me. I love it. This was fun. Episode 100. I appreciate you collecting all the questions, as always. Everyone listening, any other questions, keep them coming. Whether it's the latest and greatest foods out there, or the latest and greatest marketing things, or the thing you saw on TikTok that you're confused or want info on, we are happy to answer it. And if you send some, we might be able to include it in our next episode, which is going to be, I'm not going to tell them. They're just going to have to wait. Episode 101. It's going to be a new series, and my prediction is it's going to go at least 3 episodes. I have a feeling. I think it's going to be a 3-parter. So
we'll see. Depending. We'll see.
Stay tuned.